Now let us have the pleasure of listening to the opening remarks of Honorable Guest Dr. Prashant Udge sir. Sir has completed his MBBS from MMISR Medical College Latur, DNB from Durgabai Deshmukh Hospital Hyderabad, specialization in pediatric neurology from YDO Hospital Mumbai. I would like to call Dr. Prashant Udge sir to share your valuable opening.
Good afternoon, everyone. As this is a PG session, I expect all PGs to interact instead of it should not be a unidirectional lecture. So this is an interactive session. So I want each and every PG to interact. Okay, and even Dr. It's pleasure to have Moya sir to be on board. One of the case belongs to what he referred when we go to the videos. So what is mean by cerebral palsy? Anyone? Yeah, one of the pages stand and just define. Yes. So you can utilize this.
Cerebral palsy is a non-progressive neuromotor disorder of cerebral origin, and in that abnormality of the movement, posture and tone is present.
Right. So as she correctly said, it is a static encephalopathy, second name for the cerebral palsy. The main important word is injury to the developing brain. So what is the cutoff of the developing brain according to American Academy of Pediatrics, AAP?
Yes. In first 2 years, brain develops rapidly.
No, I'm asking what is the cutoff for the injury to the developing brain? What is the cutoff year for the
5 years age.
Yeah, so it is a 5 years of the age. After that, you cannot say it is a cerebral palsy. Next slide. हे इथपर्यंत येईल लॅपटॉप इथपर्यंत येऊ शकतो का कॉर्ड जर लांब असेल तर So in cerebral palsy, we'll be saying the what is definition. According to history, how they developed the etiology, and they have come to the conclusion what is the etiological major factor. Then classification, which is useful and which we are using as a clinician. Then pathophysiology and hemodynamic, it is more useful for clinician. But you should also understand, as we have seen in the morning, how does it help in a history taking and clinical examination. Then etiology, everyone, these causes, we won't go much detail into the etiological part. Then how to identify our early markers of the cerebral palsy. Diagnosis, then differential diagnosis or pseudo-CP, or you can say cerebral palsy mimics. And then the management. Management, we won't go much detail into that, but definitely early markers and diagnosis. Next slide. So according to the definition, it is a persistent, not changing, and it's a disorder of movement, tone and posture due to the non-progressive defect or the lesion of the immature brain. Next. Now it is associated with what are the like comorbidities associated with the cerebral palsy. As we have seen commonly in the morning, it is epilepsy. Then what is mean by, like, do you use the mental retardation at present, the term mental retardation? Or now we will call it is abandoned now, no one, it is a stigmatic, so they call it as an intellectual disability, which we have seen in a second case where there was a microcephalian dysmorphism back. So instead of mental retardation, it is a intellectual disability. Then epilepsy, that is, we call it as a remote symptomatic epilepsy, which is one type of epilepsy. Then visual and hearing defect, that's why the baby which is admitted to the NICU, now IAP has made a compulsory protocol of hearing screening and ROP screening and neurodevelopmental follow-up. And then EEG also is nowadays they are considering to rule out the seizures, or especially the babies who has the hypoglycemia and likely chance of developing the West syndrome. Then cognitive dysfunction, sensory problems, strabismus, then ADHD, learning disability, these are the associated comorbidities. So commonest is intellectual disability and epilepsy. Next. It excludes, so what is mean by this progressive pathological lesion or a lesion of the spinal cord, or and it includes non-progressive genetic disorders or congenital malformation. So what is mean by like progressive lesion? So what should we exclude? At sir morning he informed. So what should be excluded from the definition of CP? That's what I said. Any case that is not the known case of cerebral palsy. It is a case of developmental delay under evaluation. It could be CP, cerebral palsy. It could be a neurodegenerative disorder, or a problem of the spinal cord, or like meningomyelocele. What is the structural lesions? You have shown the case to me first in the morning. Neuromigrational defect, Lieschen-Kipeli you have said in the morning. Okay. So this we need to exclude the neurodegenerative disorders and progressive disorders. So what was the definition? First, William Jones in a little said, as you were stressing mainly on the history of hypoxia. But nowadays we know hypoxia doesn't contribute more than 10 to 15% of the cerebral palsy. So it could be an antenatal cause, could be genetic, and there are so many reasons. But initially it was hypothesis that hypoxia or difficult labor causes the cerebral palsy or etiology for that. But Sigmund Freud, next slide, he proposed a hypothesis that other than the hypoxia, there are many reasons which causes the cerebral palsy. And now that is true at present day-to-day practice. Next. So go back. So what are the classification? Classification of the cerebral palsy?
So spastic, hypotonic.
Now tell me which type according to you. Go according to the tone or according to the anatomical location. There are two classification. Is according to one of the physiological classification. One is the anatomical or topographic classification.
So physiological, spastic, ataxic, mixed CP, athetoid CP,
And
hypotonic CP.
Yes. And chorioathetoid or extrapyramidal, which you have
So
demonstrated.
spastic CP again divided into diplegic, quadriplegic, monoplegic and paraplegic CP.
Okay. Good. So can we go to the videos? So you will be telling me this diagnosis of this child. Go back and just open the videos in the slideshow. So this is the child. Now what I am trying to demonstrate, can anyone tell? So this is one of the red flag sign to identify cerebral palsy. If you see, this child is persistently using the right hand but very reluctant to use the left side of the body. You can say we are demonstrating hand use. So this is a left hemiplegic. So hand preference, early hand preference before 9 months of the age, it shows there is a red flag sign. We need to identify and intervene on that.
Sir.
Now which is
Spastic, sir.
spastic? Okay, so there is typical
CP.
seizuring posture into
Yes,
this.
sir.
So if you are sitting in a OP and come across a child, you should be able to immediately tell this is a developmental delay. This is
This is also spastic, sir.
no, before say don't be in a hurry. See, there is definitely hypotonia. Sir, you want to give any input? So this is a child which we are trying to demonstrate the central hypotonia. But at the same time, if you see the first part of the video, there is an extensor neck thrusting. This is typical of connectors injury or a basal ganglia damage. So there is a extensor neck thrusting. And then secondary hypotonia. When I am going to examine pull to sit position, it's showing the hypotonia. So this is around a 7-month-old child, no neck holding, not responding to the like call by name, even sound just is blinking but no eye movement, and there is a spasticity. So this is one of the sign where child should react to the sound in a proper way, where sound is coming, the baby should move. But this child is fixing the gaze, no movement, even upwards, downwards, or towards the sound. So this is one of the red flag sign for the developmental delay. So around 6-month-old child, oromotor dystonia child has this oromotor dystonia. Anything else? Any other finding? If you see here, there is a sutural fusion or sutural overriding. So do you see the microcephaly?
Yes, sir. Microcephaly, low set ear also present.
Okay, so this is more of a hypoglycemic child who has developed the microcephaly, developmental delay, and child started with infantile spasms. So this is a typical of hypoglycemic injury presented to you in a NSU follow-up. When we do the EEG, initially it showed normal EEG, we stopped the cardinal, then they have come to us, this patient is from Bidar, now developed the suddenly seizures. When I inquired the mother, she said there is no history of seizure because they are unaware about the salam spells. So in cerebral palsy, developmental delay, it's very, very important. Once you ask the history of NICU admission, you should be able to recognize, you can say internal seizures in general language, or you can say epileptic encephalopathy, such kids will be developing. So those child who has been admitted maybe preterm and had hypoglycemic damage or carnicterus or neonatal jaundice has to be monitored in a neurodevelopmental way. So if you come across, because sometimes simple EEG, if we diagnose West syndrome, give the ACTH, they may improve immediately because it is the starting of that West syndrome. Same child, the head circumference, you can see this is less than third centile, which is showing the microcephaly. This is basically not a cerebral palsy, but this is a child with neurometabolic disorder, developmental delayed from the beginning, and abnormal posture, spasticity was very severe, and no eye-to-eye contact at all. So now what is the functional or classification of the cerebral palsy? What is the functional classification? Or you can say gross motor functional classification system. So what is that? What are the grades and how do you assess the patient? 5 grades, okay, good. So what are the like type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, type 5? No, you are telling about the developmental areas. I am asking you about the classification of the, see, once you start treating the patient, you have to score according to one of the system, and then when you start early intervention, it has to be graded, okay, this was the child with grade 3, and then now, after my intervention, child has come down to grade 1, because to the, like parents, you can talk in that term, okay, this child was not walking now, but when you are speaking in front of the professional, you have to go according to that scale. So what is the scale? Yes.
There are 5 grades, sir. In 1 grade, there is no limitation of activity. In grade 1, there is no limitation of activity. He can climb the chairs or do the other activities well. In grade 2, there is slight limitation of activity, but he is so hampered. In grade 3, there is more limitation of activity, but he can walk in a straight line, but he is under observation of the parents, because in grade 4 there is the orthosis or wheelchair is used by the patient by self. Means he can use wheelchair and go independently. But in grade 5, the patient is totally dependent on the parents.
Yeah, good. So this is like grade 3 requires the assisted devices which their indoor mobility will be more, but grade 4 with severe restricted mobility but could be able to mobilize, and grade 5 obviously no. So our target in a pediatric neuro or other therapy intervention or neurodevelopmental follow-up is first 3 grades, because 5 we may or may not be able to give much benefit, but first 2 or 3 classification is very important. So as you correctly said, class 1 and 2 work independently in the community. So it is indoor and as well as outdoor mobility will be there, and they require minimal medication and intervention. They improve and do, they can be accommodated into the normal society. Grade 3 need extensive assistant devices, but they will be able to ambulate. And then grade 4, yes, but restricted mobility. Grade 5, no mobility. The same thing what we describe into the classification. One which is outdoor and indoor mobility will be there. Second, first and 2. Third will be with assisted devices. Fourth, yes, can be mobilized with the more assisted devices, but mobility will be severely restricted. Grade 5, yes, 100% they depend upon the parents for the mobility. So why this scale is important? Now the point which Dr. Rana was telling, ki how do we prognosticate? So prognostication, this scale is definitely important for us. So why cerebral palsy develops? What is the pathophysiology? How, like as I said, it was the preterm baby in the morning, sitting like W position. So we could diagnose it as a diplegic CP. Then why diplegic CP is very common in the preterm baby? And term baby, what is common? Preterm baby, diplegia is common. Yes, definitely. Then what is the reason? Term baby, term injury, quadriplegia is common. So why? Why so?
In preterm baby, there is a stretching of the white matter of the baby. So there develops periventricular leukomalacia. Means there is white matter degeneration. So the baby who is born preterm develops spastic quadriplegic CP.
Yeah, so term injury has already developed, full developed brain have the more injury rather than the preterm, and periventricular white matter is more prone to the damage as it has less oxygen supply and hyperventilation, which I think the NICU plays a major role in such cases. So the type of the cerebral palsy also depend upon pathophysiology, like whether there is a parasagittal brain injury, whether it is a PVL, periventricular leukomalacia, or hemiplegia or monoplegia, depend upon which type of neuron it affected and whether it has affected the developing brain or developed brain or immature brain. So now few definitions. I won't go into detail what is mean by hypoxia, because commonly used term by pages it is the birth asphyxia. Okay, they doesn't grade it is 1, 2, 3 or what does it mean? Hypoxia means diminished oxygen supply to the tissues. Ischemia is decreased blood flow to the tissue or a organ, and asphyxia is a disturbances of gas exchange in the fetal and maternal circulation, resulting in decreased PaO2 and increased PSO2. So this important pathophysiological mechanism is very important when a preterm child needs a surfactant or ventilation. So these are the mechanisms which neonatologist has to maintain optimum PaO2 and PSCO2 should be less. So it's either of them, even more oxygen leads to the damage to the retina, and less oxygen obviously to the brain. So usually biochemical response to the hypoxia will be once there is a hypoxia to the brain, there will be increased blood flow to the brain. Then PaO2 inversely related with cerebral blood flow. So as there is PaO2 is less, blood flow will be more, and PSCO2 content, if it is increases, blood flow will decrease. So vice versa, and it affect the mainly acid-base status or acidosis will be increased in this That's why it leads to the more damage. There, our ventilation plays major role, and that's why I think neonatologists do the ABG every 6 hourly or morning and evening to indicate what was the status for the last 12 hours. Now, in intrapartum asphyxia, it results in decreased oxygen content in the blood, increased carbon dioxide content, acidosis, then decreased blood pressure and loss of normal mechanism which tries to maintain the body at optimized things, and it ultimately leads to the damage and sometimes intraventricular hemorrhage. Now, this is a mature brain. So, mature brain is more prone to the injury rather than the premature brain. So, there will be a more of parasagittal watershed area will be more hampered in the circulation, and that's why they have the more impact. Versus in a preterm baby, you can see the white matter will be more vulnerable to the anaerobic conditions, and as we discussed, the ABG acid base balance is disturbed, so it is more affecting into the preterm babies, and that leads to the more damage in a term and less damage in the or periventricular damage in the preterm baby. That's how term baby have more damage and preterm will have more of the diplegic cerebral palsy. So what are the etiologies? I think everyone knows, so we won't go much into details of this. So prenatal causes, perinatal and postnatal causes. So what are the early markers of cerebral palsy? Just we have seen few. Now, as you are sitting in the OP, what are the early markers of cerebral palsy?
Hypotonia, prolonged primitive reflexes, feeding problems, any difficulty in dressing or developmental delay.
Okay.
All the four domains are affected, but the gross motor component is more hampered in that patient.
Okay. Then what are the other? This is like for the red flag signs for the neuro mobile unit. Other signs for the developmental delay. That also you need to consider along with the cerebral palsy.
All the four domains are affected, but mostly the gross motor are affected.
So you are concentrating more as we are dealing with the cerebral palsy on the gross motor. Okay. So these are the early markers of the CP, which I tried to focus in the video, just to complete the list. Slow head growth means you are obviously seeing child has been kept on the examination couch, and there is definitely microcephaly. One child was having macrocephaly, both we have seen in a clinical examination. Then no neck control, then eye roving movements, poor hand regard, then persistent squint, ear lack of auditory response, then child is persistent. You might have come across a child with developmental delay with excessive irritability, continuously crying. Child who has been admitted to the NICU, discharge was well, but suddenly at 3 months started. Sometimes those who are unaware of this, they start thinking in terms of abdominal pain, right, sir? And we sometimes miss the this West syndrome developing, that they develop the unknown or not correlating with the clinical condition. Irritability, child is having the extensor neck thrusting, not able to hold. Mother always complain कि दिन में भी रोता है, night में भी रोता है. If child cries in the one part and sleeping during day, we are okay with that. But if it is the excessive irritability, less sleep, mother is unable to manage, we need to be little bit, okay, is it a red sign or a red flag signs for the cerebral palsy? Then cortical thumb beyond 8 weeks, handedness before 2 years, which we have seen 1-year-old child with left hand like right hand preference. Then scissoring of the both lower limb, toe walking we have demonstrated in the morning, abnormal tone, that is the hypotonia. Then persistent of primitive reflexes or failure to acquire this postural reflexes. Then stereotypic abnormal movement and lack of alertness. All these things I have demonstrated into the videos. So this is just what we just discussed. One child with ventral suspension having the complete hypotonia will show the floppiness. Then one child having this early handedness, then dystonic or hemiplegic posture. So this is again seizuring posture. So these are the red flag signs for the motor developmental delay. Again, ataxic cerebral palsy, we have seen that child who has been went for this this workshop. So same, he was having titubation, then beating nystagmus, scanning speech, and ataxic gait. So now I want pages to interact with this. What do you think? This is a child developmentally delayed. I have been seeing these child, sir, when admitted in the PICU at 1 year of the age with encephalopathy, severe encephalopathy. Child had seizures. We could treat, reviewed. Now, if you see striking features, anyone want to point out in this child developmental delay, ADHD? Initially developmental delay, but now able to walk. He is going to normal school now after treatment. Anyone notice there is a bald, like hair loss is there? Even eyebrows, eyelashes, if you see. And this child was had this gross motor delay, severe. So as there is history of third degree consanguineous marriage, suspecting some metabolic disorder, I started with mitochondrial cocktail regime. Child improved from that episode. Child was there with me for 2 years. But this striking feature by that time was not developed. He presented with seizure encephalopathy. So then I was behind the family, was not affordable to send a tandem mass spectroscopy. Ideally, we should screen the child. So at that point, we could send it, and we got this diagnosis of biotin deficiency. So this child started with biotin 5 milligram BD, and after biotin supplementation, the same child, you could see complete, he has gained the hairs, even his intellectual capacity has increased, hyperactivity has come down. So this child has been labeled as a post-encephalitic cerebral palsy. But it has turned out, because always we have to keep our mind open, okay, whether we get any signs, because hair loss was the striking feature which I could find it out after 1.5 years of the treatment to convincing the family. And the same child we sent for the clinical exon sequencing for the genetics for next baby, and this is the genetics of this child. So there was a genetic mutation causing the biotin deficiency. So we need to suspect what are the differential diagnoses. Now this child, very interesting case. Now this child is walking from Umarga. Can you see the same child has been diagnosed with myopathy, congenital myopathy, but with early stimulation, as Dr. Rana was asking whether we can give positive outcome to the family or not, because according to our guidelines, child should not walk with this. But this child, you could see in the video itself, after 3.5 years of continuous physiotherapy at our Latur unit, along with nutritional supplement, child could now able to walk without support. This has been taken around 1 year back. Now this is again one of the things, striking features in this child, developmental delay. So any PG want to see? Purposefully we have kept mother also, because sometimes you have to give look to the mother, not the baby always. You may not find symptoms into the baby. So mother also, can you see drooping of the child is unable to lift the eyelid. So this is a child who presented with developmental delay. When I have seen the mummy also has the same thing, then we could diagnose with ENMG and anticholinesterase antibodies. I'm trying to make his attention up so that he will follow the eyes. He's doing the head like this but unable to lift the eyelids. So this is a myasthenia gravis which has been diagnosed. This is again from the periphery. Approach first time to us. And selective complaint was child was evening very dull, unable to eat, and then even unable to see properly. So differential diagnosis like such kind has to be kept in the mind. So every case is not the cerebral palsy. So mind should be open to know whether I am dealing with other than the cerebral palsy or other causes. So differential diagnosis, just now I have shown the video. There is nothing much to discuss on the theoretical aspect. So we have to see the hypotonic phase, myopathies and mitochondrial disorders. Few syndromic child with mental retardation have hypotonia. Neurodegenerative disorders, already we discussed in the morning, storage TSH disorder, then MLD or ALD kind of thing. Sometimes now child with only like no hypoxic damage, as you were stressing, hypoxia history is very non-specific. They says कि there is, okay, बच्चा नहीं रोया था. But this child, DOPA responsive dystonia, you will find a child who was normal over the period of time, child is unable to walk. Initially toe walk and develop the dystonia, but unable to walk. Such kids, you may get biased, this is a dystonic cerebral palsy. But sometimes this is a genetic condition where if you give the simple dopamine like biotin, this child will do normal in their life. Again, MRI and other collective evidence should be there. So everything should be kept in a mind. And the second condition is the Leishnihan syndrome. I could not incorporate into this. The child will be normal at the birth, no history of kernicterus, nothing, no hypoxia. But over the period of time, child develop this extensor neck thirsting, then cell-biting behavior or cutting the fingers. Even HSAN, hereditary sensory autonomic neuropathies, will also present like a cerebral palsy. I have not shown that cases into this, but you need to keep into mind all these things. Same child which I have shown, Kapil. Now role of neuroimaging, it is subjective. Even being a neonatologist, sir faced the same problem, even I face the same problem in the periphery where we doesn't get, we suspect like EEG if you take, you suspect absence epilepsy, send to the technician, you will get normal report. So you have to be very, very confirm whether that technician has done hyperventilation or not. If the technician is not aware that I have to get hyperventilation, you will miss this case. So you have to be believe on your own history. So sir, do the second EEG with this. Similarly, a child with developmental delay with query hypoxia, you need an expert who tell you along with your clinical history, third degree consanguineous marriage, developmental delay, and no history of hypoxia, but it's showing hypoxia, then do I dealing with the mitochondrial disorder, Lees encephalopathy. So always MRI may not help you. It's clinical skills and the history will always tell you. So investigation should guide you, not misguide you. So always don't think towards the, like don't depend upon the investigation. So MRI, yes, we do need very frequently, but proper reporting has to be learned by neurologists or neonatologists on their own. So these are the polymicrogyria. Role of EEG, the child which is developmental delay, we could pick up the hips arrhythmia. So most of the child who doesn't have eye-to-eye contact, developmental delay, some jerking during the night, EEG definitely will help, because simple Visolon, which is 13 rupees bottle, can cure that child of cerebral palsy towards the normal. We have the kids which I think Dr. Aparna will project, where child was developed as a hypoglycemic injury, West syndrome, we treated, now that child is going to normal school. So EEG also very important when you are dealing, you are not getting result in spite of your panchkarma, early intervention, medication, then you need to go behind such reasons and find out with the neuroimaging EEG. So don't think that Ayurveda or this one panchkarma is not working or our medication is not working. Keep your mind and eyes open and think about different causes. So assessment, basically it needs, and I always believe is the starting point is the neonatologist and pediatrician who refer to the patient to the neurodevelopmental specialist, then the early interventionist, child psychologist, psychiatrist, then a physiotherapist, occupational therapist, but it should be under one roof and with proper communication. As biggest problem is that sometimes even our own therapists at our own center, they misguide the parents that don't use medicine, don't do the like panchakarma, but there are advantage of every pathy, so it has to be in a common loop, and I am trying to now integrate one of the Ayush, like in our own center, sir, at Hyderabad also and Latur also, Panchkarma. So it is a treatment team. It is not a single doctor or a therapist or a person who will handle. After their critical job, we take up the job, and it's our responsibility till initial 5 years. We should give judgment, because one child with your eyes and mind open can change the life of a child. When I show the video after madam's presentation, definitely all the PGs will get enlightened. Okay, we should be very aware of such conditions. Do I need to go into the drugs detail? I don't think so. But definitely we need to keep in mind, along with the therapies and panchkarmas, you need a drug where there is a severe spasticity, where there is a dopa responsive dystonias, where there is a dystonia which is not responding to your this one. Some medications like baclofen, then sometimes dopa, then clonazepam, then antiepileptic. So everything helps. And where you are not getting grade 3 or 4 contractures, then Botox injection, then sometimes Ayurveda massage is not getting relief, or even after using the physiotherapy, then you need a Botox injections, then operative procedures. So it should include the orthopedician also, especially the pediatric orthopedician into your team. So here I think I'll stop my talk. So again, there are so many videos, but we'll focus on one or two. At the end of when Dr. Aparna finished the early intervention, I think I'll again come in the last part of that.